A setting sun hung like a blood-red coin tossed carelessly into the sky, sinking slowly behind a horizon of ash. Its last light spilled across rows of crumbling shacks, turning rusted tin roofs and cracked walls into frozen streaks of darkened scarlet. The air was thick, rotting garbage, exhaust fumes, the sour stench of stagnant canals cutting through the slums. By a dented trash bin wedged against a wall, a little black girl crouched low, picking through plastic bags. 11 years old, her name was Amara Johnson. The name meant eternal in Swahili, but her life felt as fragile as paper. One skipped meal was enough to set her thin body trembling. Her shirt had torn open at the shoulder, showing bones sharp as wires. Her natural curls, once soft, had become a wild, dusty tangle. She lifted an empty milk carton, shook it near her mouth. Nothing. Her dry lips quivered. Her stomach groaned, but no one heard it but her. Hunger wasn't just a feeling anymore. It was a shadow, a predator that never left her side. Then came a sound foreign to this place. The low purr of a luxury engine. A black sedan slid into the alley, headlights spilling over peeling walls. Adults on stoops straightened in surprise. Children stopped playing, wide-eyed at the alien machine. The door swung open. A tall white man stepped out, his presence cutting through the squalor like a blade. 58, graying hair trimmed to precision. Sharp forehead, eyes hard behind thin glasses. A navy suit, wine-red tie, shoes polished enough to catch the dying light. He wasn't just wealthy. He wore power the way others wore skin. Richard Hale, billionaire, founder of Hale Capital, the financial empire the state both feared and obeyed. To the world, he was the golden shark, ruthless, cold, undefeated. Tonight, he wasn't here for charity. He was here for a photograph. His company's latest takeover needed a sheen of humanity, a scene of him among the poor, handing out hope. He hated the slums, the filth, the memory of a fender bender years ago when he'd veered into this same maze of streets. But he endured, because tomorrow the headlines would make him a hero. And then he saw her. Amara, the tiny figure by the trash. Perfect. Richard imagined the shot already, the billionaire stooping to rescue the starving child. A new angle for Forbes, a clean sweep of sympathy points. He smiled thinly, stepped forward. The crowd parted. His shadow fell over her like a hawk blotting out a sparrow. "Hello, dear," Richard said, voice lowered. "Wait a second. If you like this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. It really helps us." Polished to sound gentle. "What's your name? Would you like to come with me? Where I live, you'll have food, clothes, no more digging through garbage." Amara's head jerked up. Her dark eyes stared at the stranger. Too clean, too sharp, too far from her world. She clutched the empty carton behind her back. "No, no," she whispered, voice trembling. Fear glimmered deep in her eyes. Richard bent down, hand outstretched, smooth, pale, practiced in sealing deals. He believed she would fold into his grasp as neatly as every contract before. But Amara wasn't a contract. She stepped back. Her chest thudded against her ribs. Bare feet slapped the pavement. She ran, and in that instant, the image shattered. Not a fairy tale rescue. A chase. A rich man in a shining suit, and a starving child bolting through shadows. Her eyes burned with the instinct of a cornered creature, one that had learned, too young, to run from cages disguised as kindness. Which path would claim her now? Escape into the same hunger and night, or into the grip of the man who believed even lives could be bought? Amara ran. Her small bare feet slapped against the cold cement, slipped over puddles, but she kept bolting forward like a startled bird. Her breath came in gasps, her chest tightening. Hunger and exhaustion dragged at her bones, and after only a few strides her legs buckled. "Stop her!" The barked command split the air. Two men in black suits, Richard's bodyguards, moved swiftly from the car. One hand, hard as steel, clamped down on her shoulder and lifted her as if she weighed no more than a crumpled plastic bag. Amara thrashed, eyes brimming with tears. "Let me go! I don't want to go!" But her cries dissolved into the narrow alley, where the poor only stared. They had long learned silence, long learned that the world of the rich was never theirs to touch. Richard walked forward, his shadow swallowing the child whole. He bent down, voice laced with counterfeit patience. "Don't be afraid, child. I'll take you somewhere better." Amara trembled. Hunger clawed her belly, and the promise, though cold, rang like the whisper of bread in a dream. Her eyes flicked to the paper bag one guard revealed. A sandwich, still fresh, bottles of water gleaming with condensation. The scent alone was enough to undo her resolve. She nodded. Not from trust, not from desire. Only because she was starving, weak, and utterly alone. That night, she sat curled in the back of the black sedan. Her dark eyes stared out the tinted window, watching the slums recede like a filthy dream. Streetlights flashed across her gaunt cheeks. In the front seat, Richard's gaze stared back at her through the rearview mirror. Cold, calculating. He didn't need to ask her name. To him, she wasn't a person. She was a prop. A perfect piece for the show he was about to stage. When the car stopped, Amara froze. Before her loomed a mansion like a palace, iron gates unfurling in ornate designs, twin rows of trees leading to a courtyard paved in gleaming stone. Windows blazed with golden light, like 1,000 watchful eyes. Her bare, dirty feet sank into velvet carpets. Servants bowed to Richard, but their eyes slid over her, then away, as if her presence was a stain best ignored. "Feed her. Dress her. Tomorrow morning photographs," Richard ordered. His shoes thudded up the wooden staircase, each step like a verdict. That night, a steaming bowl of soup, a loaf of bread, and a glass of milk were placed before Amara. Her eyes shone, hands shaking as if afraid it would vanish. She devoured it, spilling drops on the table, but no one cared. The maids stood at a distance, arms crossed, faces blank. By morning she wore a spotless white dress, her hair brushed into some semblance of order. A photographer and media team arrived, cameras raised. They staged the scene, Richard stooping, hand on her shoulder, his rehearsed smile gleaming. The headlines erupted. A modern-day fairy tale. Homeless black girl rescued by billionaire. A symbol of hope for the poor. Her image in that white dress at Richard's side appeared everywhere. TV, newspapers, magazines. Richard became a symbol of philanthropy. Amara became proof. But the glow faded fast. Weeks later, the reporters moved on. Doors closed, and Amara, the child once paraded as a miracle, became invisible inside the palace. Day after day, she wandered the vast halls. Servants avoided her eyes. Some whispered as they passed, "Filthy black brat." Straight from the garbage heap. Amara bit her lip, clutching the stuffed bear they'd shoved into her hands as a prop. No one taught her, no one asked her anything. Richard was gone from dawn till midnight, locked in endless meetings, deals, and dinners. At night, the glow of his office light burned until she fell asleep. She only watched him from afar, eyes wet and heavy. On hungry nights, she crept into the kitchen, stealing a leftover roll from the table, clutching it like treasure as she ran back upstairs to eat in the dark. And sometimes, whispering into the emptiness, she asked, if Mama and Papa were alive, would they have let me follow him? But no answer came, only memories. The wooden shack in the slums, her first home. Her parents, poor, yes, but warm. Her father, Marcus Johnson, tall and wiry with kind eyes and rough, hard-working hands. He used to soothe her with songs that were simple but soft. Her mother, Lydia, small with a gentle voice, always tying Amara's wild curls into 2 neat braids before rushing off to the market to work. That night, the fire, smoke roaring through the boards before anyone understood. Marcus carrying her through the choking dark, arms strong but shaking. He set her down outside, whispered, "You must live, Amara. We'll be right behind you." Then he ran back inside, to save Lydia. The door never opened again. Flames swallowed it whole, and Amara sat on the dirt, trembling, listening to her heart crack inside her chest. From that night on, she had nothing. No house, no father, no mother. Only the fragile gift of survival paid for by the lives of the 2 who loved her most. And so, she lived, because she had no other choice. That morning, Richard's personal assistant, Clara Wilson, 32, petite, quick-moving, her round glasses flashing in the light, laid out the coming week's schedule. In 2 days, he had a live interview with the National Broadcast Network. The centerpiece? His humanitarian project, with Amara as the face of it. "Mr. Hale, the media team wants you to bring Amara along. It will look perfect if people see the bond between you and the girl firsthand," Clara said. She was meticulous, always smoothing every crease in his public image. Richard frowned. He didn't want to drag the child anywhere. But in front of cameras, the image would be priceless leverage for the deal he was chasing. He nodded curtly. "Fine. Prepare it thoroughly. I don't want any surprises." Clara understood. She set to work immediately, digging into Amara's background so Richard could answer questions convincingly. She pulled municipal records, even fire department reports from years ago. Late in the afternoon, Richard sat in his vast library, oak shelves looming, when Clara stepped in holding a thick yellow file. "Sir, I've gathered what we need on Amara Johnson. You might want to review it before the interview." Richard accepted it with little interest. He flipped it open. The first page, Amara Johnson's birth certificate. Father, Marcus Johnson. Mother, Lydia Johnson. Next, a photograph of the burned-down shack. Charred beams leaning, roof collapsed, ash spreading like scars. Richard's brow furrowed. Something about it scraped at his memory. He turned more pages. A blurred black-and-white photo. A tall, wiry black man with a gentle smile. A small woman with curly hair at his side, and between them, a laughing toddler with bright eyes. Richard froze. Memory crashed over him. Years ago. He was late for a billion-dollar meeting. The freeway jammed for miles. Furious, he swerved into a poor neighborhood. His first time there. Shacks crowded together, power lines tangled like spiderwebs. He grimaced, pushed the accelerator, and then it happened in a blink. An old leaning utility pole. Metal shrieked as his car hit. The pole shuddered and toppled. Smoke hissed from his engine. The stench of burning rubber filling the air. Richard cursed. He remembered it vividly. Himself, a billionaire, standing filthy on a cracked street. A black man rushed over. Tall, wiry, sweat running down his face. He bent to check the engine, working quickly with a battered toolbox. A woman soon appeared, carrying a curly-haired little girl. She offered Richard a bottle of water. "Here, sir. It's hot. We'll get it running again soon." Richard hadn't looked closely. To him they were just nobodies, poor people hoping for money. He only scowled at his watch. "Hurry, I have a meeting." An hour later, the engine roared back. Richard tossed a wad of cash on the ground. "Enough. I'm leaving." The man tried to hand it back. "Sir, that's too much. We don't need—" But Richard had already slammed the door, speeding away. To him it was nothing but an inconvenience. He told himself, "At least I'll make the meeting," and he forgot. But the file in his hands told the rest. After he left, live wires from the fallen pole sparked. Fire crept across the row of wooden shacks, and soon an inferno. Marcus and Lydia Johnson perished in the blaze. Only Amara survived, carried out by her father before he ran back inside for his wife. Richard's hand trembled as he stared at the photo of the ruins. His sharp eyes, so often cold and calculating, now locked onto the black scars of fire. The face of Marcus resurfaced in his mind, and Lydia, the woman who handed him that water, he had never even remembered her face. "You all right, sir?" Clara's cautious voice broke the silence. Richard didn't answer. He dropped the file, pressing his fingers hard into his temples. For the first time in years, pain stabbed through his chest, not from business but from memory. The unlucky day I hit a pole had always been just a footnote to him, but to Amara, it was the day her world collapsed. He shut his eyes. Behind the darkness, he saw her again, the ragged girl by the trash can, hair wild, eyes hollow. That child was living proof of his indifference. A sound left his chest, half sigh, half groan. It didn't sound like a titan of finance. It sounded human. The chandelier's light glimmered across the yellow file. The words on those pages screamed, though they lay silent. Richard whispered hoarsely, "I owe them a life." That night, in his vast office, surrounded by paintings and polished walnut, he sat in silence. On the desk, the open file lay like a wound. Through the window, he saw Amara in the garden, curled on the steps with her stuffed bear, staring into the dark. Moonlight silvered her face, sharpening her loneliness. Richard clenched his fists. At last he understood. The charity facade had split wide open. What remained was truth. He was the man whose carelessness had destroyed her family. And now, that debt breathed inside his mansion. Richard Hale spent many sleepless nights. The files on Amara still lay open on his desk, the charred photographs leaping out at him whenever he closed his eyes. For the first time in his life, he realized that money, power, and prestige, everything he once believed to be strength, had turned meaningless. They could not bring Marcus and Lydia back. They could not erase the memory of Amara crouching by a trash can. They could not rewind the day he had been careless and selfish. That morning, Richard made a decision. He would no longer use Amara as a prop. Not because of media pressure, not because anyone forced him, but because he wanted finally to redeem himself as a man. The legal meeting took place in a wood-paneled chamber. Richard sat beside Amara, opposite his lawyer and a family court representative. The lawyer's voice was steady. Mr. Hale has formally applied to adopt Amara Johnson as his legal daughter. All paperwork will be finalized within the month. From now on, she has full rights as his heir, protected by law. Amara sat silently, clutching the hem of the dress Richard had ordered for her. She didn't fully understand the legal meaning, but she felt something shift. For the first time, Richard didn't hide, didn't wear a mask for the cameras. He looked straight into her eyes, not with coldness, but with something fragile, almost like an unspoken apology. A week later, Amara walked through the gates of an elite international school perched on the city's northern hill. Children from across the world filled the courtyard, in neat uniforms, speaking in a chorus of different tongues. At first she felt lost. The whispers of dirty from the mansion, the memory of the trash heap, still lingered, but soon a dedicated teacher took her under wing. Classmates sat beside her, laughed with her, studied with her. For the first time, her name was called out in class with respect, not mockery. Richard often waited in the car outside. He didn't intrude on Amara's small world, yet every time he saw her run out smiling, clutching a certificate of merit, he felt something inside him being cleansed. Time passed. 3 years later, on a cool autumn afternoon, Amara, now 14, stood at a modest grave in the outskirts. She wore her Navy school uniform, holding an Outstanding Student of the Year award. Placing it gently on the stone, she bowed her head. "Mom, Dad," her voice broke, her eyes shining. "Is this what you wanted for me? I'm doing well now. I have school friends, teachers, a life I never dared dream of, even when you were still here. But now I have it." She lifted her gaze to the sky, whispering as though to the heavens, "Why did he find me that day? Why did he bring me home? Was it because you two arranged it from above?" A soft wind brushed past, rustling her skirt. Amara closed her eyes, letting it touch her face like a gentle embrace from her parents. Through her tears she smiled. "I'll keep going. I'll live better than ever." Not long after, Richard stood at an international investment forum, the polished wooden stage beneath him, hundreds of suited guests before him. But this time, his voice wasn't the clipped monotone of profit reports. He told the story of a little black girl who once searched for food in trash, who had been despised as a stain, yet still rose, studied, and smiled. "I've realized," Richard said, his voice echoing, "that no matter who you are, where you come from, or what color your skin, if your character is good, you deserve respect." A broken family and a little girl scavenging the streets taught me that we don't choose where we're born, but we all deserve to live with dignity. The hall fell silent. Not everyone believed that the financial shark Richard Hale had truly changed. Yet in that moment, his words rang with such honesty that many lowered their heads in thought. For Amara, the past would never vanish. She remained a survivor, a child who had lost everything because of another man's indifference. But she also understood there are people who dare to face their mistakes, to change, to atone. That, to her, was enough to call them human. Amara did not owe Richard as a servant owes a master. She did not worship him as a savior. She simply lived, studied, and grew as the gift her parents left her. In her heart, they remained her guiding flame. And Richard, though he could never replace them, had become part of her rebirth, not through wealth, but through the courage to repair what he had broken. One afternoon, Amara sat by her classroom window, sunlight threading through her curls. Her teacher praised her before the class. Friends clapped. She smiled, not timidly this time, but brightly, as if the light came from within. At the back of the auditorium, Richard watched quietly. He didn't clap. He didn't need to be seen, but his eyes, once cold as steel, now shone warm, for the first time, not for a contract, but for a person. Message. The story of Amara and Richard reminds us that a single moment of indifference can steal away an entire life. Yet the courage to face one's mistakes and to make them right, that is the greatest strength of being human. No one chooses where they are born, but everyone deserves the chance to live with dignity, to have their name spoken with respect. Goodness does not come from status or skin color. It comes from the bravery to confront the truth, and sometimes it is a small child who can change even the hardest of hearts.